If there's one thing we've learned about business and life, it's that people are the X factor. They constantly surprise us, both in amazing ways and not so much. We're Ben and Syya, and welcome to the Gnaw on This Business Bites podcast. This show is all about real life things we all deal with every day, how they relate to business, and how to make some sense out of our daily chaos. Welcome to the show. And welcome back to another episode of Gnaw on This Business Bites. I'm Ben. This is Syya. And what I want to talk to you about today is storytelling and how it shapes your brand identity. You know what? Stories are what people remember. From 10,000 years ago till today, ideas are passed. Trust is built. Societies are created based on stories. We can sit there and have these mission, vision, value statements laminated up on the wall. But if people can't remember them, if people can't recall them, retell them, and have other people recall and retell them, they're not doing their job. And stories, whether you get the words perfectly, whether you get all the ideas perfectly, you're going to be able to retell it based on the way that it made you feel. When I heard the story of a friend of mine's new granddaughter, could I remember this kid's name? No, I couldn't remember the kid's name, but I was able to retell the story, about, what their parents were doing. And she was so excited to tell me the story about her granddaughter and this, that, and the other thing. Sure, I can retell the story, but I'm not going to get all the details correct, but I'm going to be able to get the essence of the story out to be able to tell it to others. And that's all that matters. And stories don't have to be perfect. They have to be understood. They have to be internalized. You have to be able to recall them, and you have to be able to retell them. Because when you do that, your brand is elevated, your brand is disseminated, and your brand is elevated. So, Syya, let's gnaw on this.
Look, we don't remember things because we simply remember them when we recall things from our childhood and all that stuff. Now, there might be a very small population that might have what's that called?
Perfect memory or
Perfect
whatever?
memory or whatever it's called, eidetic memories and stuff
Yeah,
like that. No, no, no. I'm talking majority of the humans out there and human brain, I'm assuming that's how our brain functions, is we remember those things because there's an emotional attachment to it. And I say
absolutely.
this all the time to all my clients in all different markets and industries. You can talk about the what it is that you're talking about all day long, but if
Hmm.
I don't give a you know what patootie about what that is, I ain't gonna remember it. It's probably gonna be boring content, right? That's kind of the name of the game. So when brands are trying to build a community, establish credibility, right? Um, you know, just increase visibility in general,
Hmm.
right? You got to give a reason why to make it stick. Why do we want to give a damn about, I'll say McDonald's. I know we pick on McDonald's, but, and I'm not hungry. I don't know why I keep saying McDonald's,
I
but
had lunch. I shouldn't be hungry, but
yeah,
you
I
know what?
know.
As soon as you say McDonald's, I think French fries. And
That's funny. Well, I think my chicken nuggies. But anyway,
there
okay.
you go.
Because I like pink random. Okay, no. Anyway, so what I was trying to say though is that you know the reason why maybe I thought of McDonald's because as a kid that was a reward, right? If I
Yes, it
did well
was.
in school, I got to go to McDonald's, right?
Hmm.
And McDonald's leaned into that. They're like, oh yeah, we know darn well that is used as a mechanism either of convenience through road trips and who knows how many times road trips have been miserable, but tons of memories, right? I mean, whoo, good, bad, ugly memories still exist there. But yes, so any brand that can tap into something that is going to enter the zeitgeist, I mean, you've nailed it, right? And I love the fact that there are companies that just lean into it 100%. This is
Absolutely.
what we are, and you know, good, bad, ugly, and different. This is our branding, and that's why we make our billions, right?
Hmm. It's interesting. You said something about why people care. And people care for different reasons. So telling the story the same way to different groups, assuming you're going to get the same answer, it's not going to work either. I mean, I'll never forget doing the same keynote in 30 different cities to 30 different audiences. And guess what? Every single time I gave the same keynote, I changed the analogies.
Mm,
I changed the references. I changed little pieces of the story. The story was still true,
hmm.
but how do you make it relevant to lawyers? How do you make it relevant to cops? How do you make it, relevant to nurses or HR people or CEOs? That same story resonates because you can sit there, the person can sit there and go, okay, I can see myself in that place.
Yes.
I can see myself as going down that path. And I can see myself being aligned with that brand because I see myself as part of that journey.
Yep.
And a great storyteller understands the people that are in front of them and knows how to adjust that story to be able to make it relevant to the audience that's in front of them.
You know, here's another question I have because
Hmm.
and I'm going to say it delicately. So there are some brands out there that for whatever reason have cultivated a completely different crowd to what they initially thought they would um accrue as a community of fans for them.
Right.
So how would you address that? Because I'm curious now. This is random now thinking about
Yeah.
this is so thinking like the Gen Zs now are the big talked about generation,
Right.
right? How do we get them in their attention? How do we get their allegiance? How do we get to think like them? Because there's definitely and man alive, every time I think about generations, the premise of my argument is always this: life is cyclical. Even when us Gen Xers were in our 20s, we were considered the slacker generation, right?
Hmm.
Like, we seem so disaffected, blah, blah, blah. I feel like, with the millennials, we made fun of them. And now we're looking at Gen Z. And I don't see them as slackers. I see them as caring, but almost in a way that's like not misdirected, but they're so passionate that it's kind of like overzealousness in some ways. And I think we were too. I think we were
We
too.
absolutely were. That's
And
youth. That's called
it's youth,
youth.
right? And but we have our own languages. Like each generation has their own language.
You bet.
And I'm wondering, does the story, I'm a classic brand, let's say Coca-Cola, right? If we're a classic brand and we are having to always reinvent ourselves to because you have to with each
Yeah.
generation, do you think the story changes or the foundation of the story is the same, but the execution is slightly the 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 verbiage is different, or what do you think that is? Because again, I'm thinking in the back of my brain, I'm thinking that I'd like to buy a world of Coke, right?
Right.
Like to me with Coke, they've done it I haven't seen it do every year, but they seem to do it every 5, 10 years to bring that song back.
Right.
Either the original version or some kind of more updated modern version.
Updated version.
Is that
Here's
where
here's my take on thing.
do you see where I'm going?
Your
Yeah,
your
okay.
your brand is your brand is your brand.
Okay.
This is who we are. This is what we do. This is why we do it. This is who we do it for, and this is why people care. And people are either Coke people or people are Pepsi people. People are either Nike people or they're Adidas people. People are either Safeway people or Kroger's people. People sit there and just say, people like us do things like this, and they align themselves with a brand because certain things in today's generation, it's how are you showing up and what are your values? And the conversation today is a value-based conversation. It says not only what are you doing to sell me your product, but how are you showing up as a corporate citizen to be able to show us that you are more than just your brand. You're giving us reason to want to support you because you support the things that matter to us. And I think brands evolve, but the core of the brand of who you are and what you do and what you do it doesn't really change, and it shouldn't change unless, and all of a sudden, if your brand changes too much, your brand has become irrelevant and you've gone through a brand transition. And all for what was your brand is no longer your brand. Your brand is something brand new, and that's controlled by the people who do it. But your brand story has to be told by people who your audience knows, like, and trusts.
Yeah.
You know, people don't go to the Coca-Cola website anymore. They talk to people on TikTok that tell them why they should support Coca-Cola. And it's an influencer generation, and people are influenced more by their peers than they are by brands themselves. So the brand will tell the story, but the power of that is, how does that brand does does the brand, by telling their story, do they remain relevant to a new generation? And is what they're saying and what they're doing coexisting in a way that that generation says, I can support that brand because their their words and their actions are congruent.
You totally just brought this up in my brain here. And as you know, I've got this like lace obsession. For those that may or may not know, I got into this band called Stray Kids. Not, they're not a band, they're a K-pop group called Stray Kids. And if you know anything about me, I'm like 80s, 90s alternative. I love my punk. But just you brought this up in my head and it just popped in, which is, so there's 8 members of this band. 6 of them, I think 6 of them or 7 of them have global brand ambassadorships with these like retail
Yep.
companies, these like clothing companies, high-end luxury retail. And the first one that pops into my head is like, so Sungmin's my favorite. He's just a great singer,
Yeah.
and he is an ambassador for Burberry. I have never thought about Burberry ever. But I've always liked the clean lines.
Hmm.
They're very neutral. They just, they got their plaid signature, and that's cool. And they got the trench coats. Unfortunately, I don't live in a place that ever needs a trench coat, so I could just pretend maybe in my brain I'd ever wear a trench coat. But it's interesting how each of those members have become ambassadors for Fendi, Gucci, Dior. I mean, it's crazy. These guys have really gotten some huge ambassadors, but these are all Gen Zers.
Yes.
And I don't know of any Gen Zers that got the money to spend all that on those products, but if you can, more power to you, or maybe it's a goal to strive for. But I will tell you this much. Those brands, by reaching out to a younger generation, their story is still the same. Like, I'm going to pick on Burberry. To me, it's very classic, it's very clean, and it's very gosh, it's I don't want to call it conservative, but it's just a very classic. It will never
Yeah.
go, it's never overstated. Just it's a
Hmm.
you can be consistently believing that the product is going to
Yes.
be good. That's their story. That's the vibe.
Yeah.
The materials are great, all that good stuff. And I think what you just nailed is exactly it, which is you can go through different ambassadors over time, right? All the
Hmm.
influencer, spokesperson, all the celebrities, endorsement, whatever you want to call it, but their story remains the same, right?
Yep.
Their product and what they offer, whoever's going to buy into their product is going to know this is it, no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
And here's the thing. If people weren't buying Burberry and Fendi and all this kind of thing of that generation,
They're
those
going to.
companies would not first of all, they're going to, and second of all, they wouldn't be using these people as ambassadors if they didn't see an ROI, if they didn't see that that generation is now shopping in the stores, and they may not be buying the $2,500 Armani dress, but they might buy the $500 purse or whatever. And what you're doing is
Handkerchief, 'cause I think, yeah,
you're getting a generation used to buying a certain level and identifying themselves with an updated and an elite brand.
exactly.
And and that takes time. It says, and I don't know how much time we have to go, but look at Macintosh for years. Macintosh, early in the 1990s, started selling computers to elementary and high schools cheap,
Yeah.
cheap, 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 cheap. So you had a whole generation of kids that went through elementary school and high school only using Macintoshes.
Yeah.
And when those people got out to the workforce, well, where's my Mac?
Yep.
When all those people started becoming managers, they're the ones that were able to make the purchasing decisions. Well, we're buying Macs. And people got used to that whole generation. And those same people bought iPads and iPods and iWatches and it might have taken 15 or 20 years to build that brand story and to build that relationship, but it's paid off in hundreds and millions and billions of dollars, over the next 10 years.
So I think if we were to like land this plane, do you have a story to tell for your brand first off?
Absolutely.
And is your story never ending story? Is it timeless?
Is
I
it
think that's it.
timeless?
That's a great way to, I think that's a great way to end it.
And does it resonate with the people you want it to resonate with?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm Ben.
Syya, and hey,
And
karaoke hour in 5 minutes backstage. Just kidding. No one ever wants to sing with me. Sorry. Okay. Sorry.
Syya, we'll see you soon.
Hey. Thanks for listening to another episode of Not On This Business Bites. If you liked what you heard, we most humbly ask that you like, share, and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to communicate more effectively within your organization, contact Ben at yourbrandmarketing.com or me at brilliantbeammedia.com. We can help you build your community, brand awareness, and personality through digital content and podcasting. We cannot wait to hear from you. So see you next week for another episode of Not On This Business Bites.